In my last video I showed you how I was getting better scans in the lab using the Valoi Easy35. Whilst it wasn't perfect, the Easy35 offered a great combination of cost, convenience and speed. Overall I was genuinely quite impressed, but in this video I'll be taking things a step further and I'll show you how you can get even better results than the lab. If you watched my previous video on this topic, you'll know that whilst I'm quite new to home scanning, I was really quite pleased with the results I was getting from the Easy35 system. But that's not to say it wasn't without its flaws. One of the issues was with its build quality, and whilst in practice that isn't necessarily a problem, it didn't quite feel premium despite its price. But more importantly, there were some light uniformity issues, which would show up as orange vignettes in the corner of the frame. However, neither of these issues were particular deal breakers for me, as the build quality was fine in normal use, and the orange vignette could be mostly resolved in post-production, although it added a few extra steps to the workflow. But at the end of that video I said that I was going to sell my Easy35, but only because the Valoi Easy35 version 2 had just been announced. Well, it's a few weeks later now and I'm pleased to say that I've got the version 2 in my hands and I've had a chance to put it through its paces. This isn't going to be a full review, think of it more of a first impressions video. But that said, I'll be comparing my version 2 scans, comparing them against version 1 and also the lab scans so you can see the difference for yourself. And at the end of the video I'll be showing my initial thoughts on whether the version 2 is worth buying, especially if you're considering upgrading from the original Easy35. So what's actually changed with the version 2? Firstly, think of it as a refinement rather than a complete overhaul. Anyone familiar with the version 1 will feel right at home here. However, Valoi have made some welcome improvements which improve both image quality and usability. So starting off with the main unit, with the biggest change being the light source itself, which Valoi say eradicates the orange vignette issues seen with the version 1. And from my limited testing so far, I would agree. On the version 1 unit, there was also a separate brightness and colour temperature dial, with the brightness dial also on double duty as a power switch. On the version 2, Valoi have simplified things by replacing all of this with a simple on-off button. Personally, I think this is a positive change, as the dials on the original unit would often get knocked accidentally mid-scanning, resulting in some inconsistent results. Battery life has reportedly been improved too, increasing to around 4 hours between charges, which is roughly twice as good as the original version. The other change that I noticed straight away is that the film appears to sit flatter in the holder. Flatness is really important when doing camera scanning, because any curvature in the negatives can result in some focus issues, which you wouldn't necessarily see until you offload them to the computer. Version 2 now uses a ball bearing system to help keep the negatives flatter and better aligned during the scanning process, and from my limited testing so far, this does appear to be the case. In the complete kit, aside from the main unit, you still also get a set of metal extension tubes and step-up, step-down rings, which appear unchanged from the previous version. There's also a branded USB-C charge cable, which is a nice touch. If you're upgrading from the version 1, Valoi now also offer an upgrade kit, which allows you to reuse your extension tubes and step-up, step-down rings from your previous kit. Personally, I'd recommend buying the version 2 as a complete kit because it allows you to resell your version 1 and recover some of that upfront cost. One of the major advantages to the Valoi Easy35 is the simple setup, only requiring a digital camera and a macro lens. The included setup guide also provides a recommended starting point based on your camera's sensor size and the focal length of your macro lens. And if you're new to camera scanning with the Valoi Easy35 system, I'll provide a link to my previous video where I went through in much more detail step-by-step instructions on how to set up and use the system. The Valoi Easy35 version 2 is a genuine improvement over the original and an excellent option if you're considering getting into camera scanning for yourself at home. It addresses several of the complaints associated to the original whilst providing better usability and improved results. So if you already own the original, I don't recommend that you rush out and upgrade to version 2, because whilst it's better in most respects, these are still iterative improvements, and unless you have spare budget waiting to be spent, you're perhaps better off spending that upgrade money on film instead. Thanks for watching today's video, I really appreciate it. Please give it a like and consider subscribing so you don't miss my next upload. And let me know in the comments, what do you think about the Valoi Easy35 version 2? And are you considering picking one up for yourself? I'd love to hear from you. So until next time, take care, keep shooting, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.